Solutions Barbados welcomes your candidate for Christchurch East Central, Scott Weatherhead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Scott Weatherhead, and I'm the candidate for Christchurch East Central for Solutions Barbados. Do you have anybody in here from Kingsland? How about Watton? Anybody from Watton or Elizabeth Park, Sheridan Park? All right. Is anybody here concerned about the economy in Barbados? We're all concerned about the economy, right? Well, the big question is, what can be done to solve our economic problems in this nation? Well, I'm here to tell you what Solutions Barbados will do if we're elected to form the next government of this country. You see, the problem with our economy is that the country has been run into the ground by successive governments. Which governments? The Barbados Labour Party and the Democratic Labour Party. Because they're the only two governments since our independence that have ever formed in this nation. Over the years, the BLP and the DLP has mismanaged the country through ineffective policies, bad public service management, outdated tax policies, and indiscriminate borrowing. Thanks to their ineffective policies and bad management, today, this country, you, the people of Barbados, all of you here tonight, and these beautiful ladies and gentlemen behind me, are indebted to $13.7 billion. That means that every single one of you folks out here tonight, and all of us behind, and all of you watching online, you now have a loan of $100,000 to pay back on top of your own personal debts. That doesn't include your credit card debts and your mortgages and your car payments and so forth. The money's coming from you, you know. The money is coming from you. Because government gets its money from you. That's who it gets its money from. And now the BLP wants to add more debt to that amount by suggesting that we should go to the IMF for financing. That's their solution to the economic problems facing Barbados right now. That is the only solution that I've so far heard them say. Let's just add more debt to the problem by seeing if we can take this country to the IMF. Now let's look at the DLP solution. What are they doing about it? They're taxing you to oblivion to pay this debt. That is what the Democratic Labour Party is doing in this country. Tax, and more tax. So now instead of the 15% VAT that Owen Arthur introduced, we now have 17.5% VAT. We have 10% NSRL. We have 2% tax on foreign exchange. We have import duties up to 100% on some items. We have corporation tax at 25%. We have income tax up to 35%. We have land tax. We have solid waste tax. We have property transfer tax, excise tax on fuel and soft drinks, general insurance tax, bank tax on assets, stamp duties, and a whole long list of other taxes that these two parties have put on you in order to pay off the debts that they have borrowed in the first place. These governments took out loans on your behalf for 20 years, 30 years, or even longer. When their term in office is only 5 years, I would like somebody to tell me how it is that you can be in office for 5 years and still be able to take out a loan for 30 and 35 years. So what happens after the 5 years? Well, that becomes the next government's problem, because that government is gone and the next guys have to pay it. So when the DLP came to office in 2008 and they looked at the books and they told you that the BLP had left a debt of $9 billion on the accounts. That wasn't just political talk. That was a fact. And so the DLP had to tax you to pay it back. But guess what the DLP did? Rather than reduce it, they added to that debt by $5.7 billion in just the last 9 years alone. Over the last 5 years, from 2012 to 2016, this government spent over $16 billion on running the government of Barbados. But they only earned $12.4 billion. So there was a shortfall, or an accumulated deficit, of $3.65 billion, or $730.4 million per year in deficit was created by the mismanagement of this country's finances by this current administration. So where do you think they got the money from to pay the shortfall? Well, I can tell you where they got it from. They borrowed it. They put you and me and all of us here in further debt. This madness has to stop, and it has to stop now. You can't be just borrowing people to death. This borrowing has to cease. Today, 30 cents on every dollar you earn goes to the government of Barbados in taxes. 30 cents, you only get to keep 70 cents on every dollar that you make in this country, and you still have a $100,000 loan to pay back, thanks to these two governments. And they want to borrow more money? Man, you got to be joking. We don't want any more debt in this country. Look, the Minister of Finance, the Right Honorable Mr. Sinclair, just went and took out another $15 million loan last week from CAF, the Latin American Development Bank, for upgrades, he says, to the BRA. That's another $30 million in debt that he just signed for on your behalf, and you have to pay it back through additional taxes. Can you imagine me going to the bank and taking out a loan for $30 million and saying to you, I just signed your name on the loan, and you got to pay it back out of hardship for the next 35 years? Well, that is what these governments have been doing to you for the last 50 years. Did you know that in fiscal year 2016-2017, 95% of all government revenue in this country came from taxes? 95%. 95% of all government revenue in this country currently is paid out of taxes. They only make 5% from efficiently run government businesses, such as the Barbados National Terminal Company Limited and the Hilton Hotel, the two most profitable businesses that this government has right now. And they want to sell those two businesses to pay back this debt. So when they sell the two businesses, the two most profitable businesses that they have, that means that 99% of the debt in this country is 99% of the revenue that government earns in this country is going to come out of taxes, because they're not going to have any profitable business left to earn money to pay the government expenses. This country can't take any more taxes. We are past the point of tax saturation. Do you know what tax saturation is? Tax saturation is when adding more taxes to the economy no longer raises any more revenue, but it reduces the revenue that government earns. Remember that phrase, tax saturation, because we're going to be talking about it a lot tonight. Tax saturation. We reached the tax saturation point in Barbados 10 years ago in 2007. We have long since passed it now. That means that when the BLP left office, we were already overtaxed and over-leveraged. For the last 9 years, this government increased taxes on you by $344 million. That's not a number I just picked out of a hat. That's the number that Chris Sinclair said in his last budget presentation. The minister also said that since 2013, government embarked on an intense fiscal program to trim the fiscal deficit, and this resulted in lower tax receipts, and it caused the government revenue targets to remain unmet. But it sounds like a lot of economic jargon, right? Well, let me explain what he was really trying to tell you. Do you know what, when you hear about the fiscal deficit, you know what they're talking about? The fiscal deficit is the shortfall between what government is spending and what government is earning in a single financial year. It is the shortfall. When a government spends more money in 1 year than it earns, the difference is called the fiscal deficit. In other words, the fiscal deficit is the amount of money that the government was short by. So what he was really telling you was that over the last 4 years, he increased taxes in this country in hopes of raising revenue so that they could close the gap between what government was spending and what they were earning, and that as a result of increased taxes, instead of getting in more money, they got in less money. Now their solution to this problem is to add another $542 million in additional taxes on you in 9 months, and they're supposed to fix the problem? Tell me why the $344 million didn't do the job of meeting expenditure over the last 9 years, because I really would like to know. I would like to know. Let me tell you why it didn't meet the expenditure. It didn't because when those taxes were introduced, this country was already past the what? The tax saturation point. It didn't work because we had reached the point where adding more taxes have the reverse effect on government revenues. More taxes don't raise more revenue. When you reach tax saturation, they make the revenue problem worse. Why do they make it worse? They make it worse because when you take money from people that ain't got no money left to live on, they can't live. They can't pay the land tax. They can't pay NIS. They can't pay PAYE. They can't pay their VAT. They can't pay their road tax, income tax. They can't even pay rent. They can't even look after the car if they can afford to have a car in the first place. They can barely buy food. When the people have less money to spend, they spend less money, and there's less economic activity, and this is called a recession. And because these government income categories like VAT and NIS and so on earn less money, of course government makes less money. Food and gas and water and rent and light and so on, these are essential things that everybody but here has to pay. But NIS and VAT and so forth, those become optional when people's backs are against the wall. So of course the government revenues decrease. They don't increase, they decrease. So are you surprised by the recent IMF report this week that says that government is unlikely to meet their fiscal deficit targets this year? No, I'm not surprised in the least bit. I said so the day the minister gave his speech in Parliament earlier this year for the budget. I said, this is a joke. This will never meet revenue. The government of Barbados does not operate outside of the economy of Barbados. When government increases the cost of living in Barbados through increased taxes, they're taxing themselves because the government is operating within the same economy in which they're taxing. So when the cost to run the government goes up because of increased taxes, they have to borrow more money to subsidize it. So we need to bring down the cost of running the government, not increase it. And we need to bring it down quickly without sending home people. Because sending home workers will only reduce productivity and make the problem worse. It's not going to increase them. So increasing taxes will no longer increase revenues. We've realized this. This government has just discovered it. Oh my goodness. It's going to make the problem worse. Why? Because we are past the tax saturation point. You can't, as a government, keep spending $3 billion a year to run the government and continue earning $2.5 billion a year in income and just keep borrowing the difference forever and ever and think that everything is going to be okay. Eventually, you're going to be bankrupt. And every single cent you earn is going to go to pay your loans back. This madness has to stop. And the BLP and the DLP are all the same. And the difference between the two of them, these two parties have been putting you and your children and your grandchildren in debt for a lifetime with their tax and borrow policies. And they're going to continue to do it unless you put a stop to both of them. Or you can put one of them back in office again and find out what's going to happen. You will reap the consequences. But be aware, your children and your grandchildren will be paying the consequences too for the rest of their lives in taxes, economic hardship, and eventually the devaluation of the Barbados dollar. So now the minister wants to add another $542 million of taxes on this country and think that he's going to raise more revenue. I wonder how much he can tax you in the next budget. Now we're up to almost $1 billion in new taxes since this government has been in office. And we are long past the tax saturation point. So what do you think is going to happen? You think all of a sudden they're going to get a balanced budget? No. Let me tell you what's going to happen. They will miss their revenue target again at the end of this financial year. That is what is going to happen. Mark my words. When the Minister of Finance delivers his next budget presentation, he will tell you that the foreign reserve is now somewhere around 5 weeks of imports cover, and there's still a gaping fiscal deficit, and they need to tax you some more in order to meet that deficit. And when that doesn't work, which it is not going to work, they will keep borrowing more money from the central bank, borrowing money from the NIS, borrowing from local and foreign banks, printing money, and taking money from the foreign reserve to pay this $13.7 billion in loans that the BLP and DLP has borrowed on your behalf. And when the NIS is totally broke, and retirees can't get their pensions, and the foreign reserve is completely empty, and nobody can get any foreign reserve to send off to buy any food for fuel or gas in this country because there's no more foreign exchange left, then they're going to go cap in hand before the IMF and ask for an emergency loan so this country can get some foreign exchange to buy food and gas for the citizens of this country. You think you're feeling economic pain now? Mr. Granville Phillips told you what happened in Guyana. Look at the Guyanese dollar now, 208 Guyanese dollars to $1 US. Y'all want that for Barbados? Absolutely not. So what is the alternative? Well, we all know what the BLP would do if you elect them. We believe that they would take this country straight to the IMF. Why? Because they don't have a clue what to do to solve our economic problems. None whatsoever. If they had one, they would have told you it already. They would have told you exactly what they will do to fix the problem. The only thing I've heard them say recently is that they will do whatever is legal and moral to fix this country. Wait, legal and moral? They got a lot of legal and moral things you can do to fix this country, but I have not heard the BLP line out or outline not one single economic policy that is going to solve the problems in this country, and they want you to elect them? You got to be joking. They said their economic team is working on a plan. And if you elect them, within 6 weeks of taking office, they can bring an economic stabilization and growth plan to Parliament. So they want you to elect them first, and then they can come up with an economic plan. That's what the BLP wants to do. So tell me where they can get this economic plan from. They can get it from the IMF. That's where they can get it from. We want to hear your plan now, BLP, or they don't deserve a single seat in this country, not one. Bring your plan. The citizens of this country are not stupid. When you see them canvassing in your constituencies and asking you for votes, I want you, for me, to ask them to outline for you exactly what their economic solution is, and you will compare it with ours, which I'll outline in a moment. I don't want to leave out the UPP, though. Their leader said, that is the UPP, that her party was willing to, and I'll quote, review all options for borrowing, including going to the IMF. So we know what the UPP's plan would be. Let's look at the DLP's plan. What is their economic solution? They'll soon be asking you to re-elect them. But what is the DLP's plan to fix this country's economic solutions? But they don't have a solution, because if they did, they would have implemented it already. They had 9 years in government to do it, and they haven't done it yet. The only plan I've seen from them is tax and borrow, tax and borrow. That's their solution. More taxes, more debts, more borrowing, more economic suffering for the citizens of Barbados. At least they had the good sense to stay away from the IMF, though. Although I've seen they've been courting them recently. So what is Solutions Barbados' economic plan? Well, that is what I'm here to tell you about tonight. What is the way forward? And Solutions Barbados is in fact the way forward. Well, let me tell you what Solutions Barbados will do. Solutions Barbados has designed an internationally accepted, tried and tested, comprehensive alternative economic solution that has withstood almost 3 years of rigorous scrutiny by some of the brightest minds in financial and economic thinking. Our economic solution does not include going to the IMF to borrow any more money. It does not include more taxes. It does not include more austerity. In fact, it is the complete opposite of all that has been done to you by these two obsolete parties. We are proposing to put money back in your pockets by reducing taxes across the board so as to reduce the cost of living in this country, so the citizens of this country can live and eat once again. How are we going to do it? We're going to remove the 17.5% VAT completely. There will be no such thing as VAT in this country under a Solutions Barbados government. None. That means that the cost of living in Barbados will go down by 17.5% immediately. We are going to remove the 10% NSRL completely. Well, we just heard on the news that it's not meeting targets anyway, but we're going to get rid of it altogether. This means the cost of living will go down by an additional 10%. We're going to remove the 2% foreign exchange commission. That means that when you go to the bank to send off money to your relatives overseas and so forth, and you go to pay your credit card bill, You won't have to give the government 2% of that. We will remove the 25% corporation tax on profits. That will reduce the incentive for local businesses to hide their profits through offshore entities in places like St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Cayman Islands, which currently places strain on the foreign reserve. And this measure is going to help to stabilize the foreign reserve of this country. We'll remove the 35% personal income tax. That means that your PAYE deductions will be reduced, and you will get an immediate net pay increase on your next pay slip. We will remove the excise tax on fuel. That means that gas prices at the pump will come down right away, and electricity bills will go down even further. We will remove the insurance taxes. That means the insurance premiums will go down. We'll remove the bank tax on assets. That means that banking fees will go down, and interest rates on deposits can start to go back up again. We will reduce import duties on many items and remove it entirely on others in line with WTO agreements. That means that healthy foods such as fruit and vegetables, as well as low-fat and low-salt foods, will be duty-free in this country under Solutions Barbados administration. We will completely restructure the Barbados Revenue Authority from the top to the bottom. We will replace all of these existing taxes you currently pay today with a simple and easy to calculate and easy to audit 10% flat tax on gross income with no deductions. This new 10% tax will be applied to all citizens and to all businesses equally. By reducing the cost of living in Barbados, you will have more money to spend. And what happens when you have more money to spend? You're going to spend it on all those things you need to do over the last 10 years that this government will allow you to do. That means that the old couch that the dog bit up, you can finally send it to the dump and you can buy a new one. That means that the old car that you've been driving around for the last 15 years, like me and Paul Gibson here, you can finally get rid of it and buy a new car. That means that the house that been needing to be painted for the last 10 years, you can now get it painted. That means that the rust-out fridge and washing machine that needed replacing for the last 10 years, you can now get it replaced because you can finally afford to do these things under Solutions Barbados administration. Now, when everybody in Barbados does the same thing, what is going to happen? That is called economic activity, and that is what we need. Businesses get increased sales, land tax gets paid, road tax gets paid, income tax gets paid, and government earns more money out of the sheer volume of all of that economic activity. And they're going to earn it how? Through the new 10% tax on gross revenue across the board that we will implement. So today, you get to keep 70 cents on every dollar that you earn. And under Solutions Barbados administration, you will get to keep 90 cents on every dollar you earn. And you're going to be earning more money. Which one of those you prefer? Everybody knows that when money is flowing in an economy, things get better. Solutions Barbados is going to flow money in this economy like you have never seen before. The 10% flat tax we will implement is not something that we invented here in Barbados. This is not a tax system that Solutions Barbados came up with. It's a modern, tried and tested system which has worked extremely successfully in at least 37 countries around the world, including some right here in the Caribbean, and 11 states in the United States of America. Our current tax system is antiquated and outdated, and it has to be replaced with a more modern and efficient tax system that addresses all of the issues plaguing the current tax system and the tax inefficiency in this country. Our current tax system does not capture everybody. The 10% flat tax system will. Presently, our outdated progressive tax system with its many deductions and loopholes allows businesses and individuals to creatively craft tax avoidance systems so as to reduce the taxes they pay or to eliminate them altogether. And the CARICOM single market and economy has enabled this even further with tax treaties between the member countries, which allow businesses to shelter their profits in offshore jurisdictions such as St. Lucia and St. Vincent, and allows the Barbadian shareholders to repatriate those profits tax-free to Barbados. There are entire companies in this country that specialize in helping businesses craft these creative tax structures so as to avoid paying much of any tax in Barbados. With a flat tax system applied to gross revenue instead of on profits, all these businesses will be captured in the tax net. That means that you, the citizens of this country, will not have to pay as much in tax if everyone and every business contributes to the tax base fairly and equally. Did you know that last year alone, the citizens of this country paid $469.8 million in income taxes to this government? $469.8 million is what us, the citizens of this country, paid in taxes. Do you know what the businesses of this country paid? All of them combined in corporation taxes? $241.2 million. That's all the corporations combined. We, the citizens, paid almost twice that amount at $469.8 million. The 10% flat tax on gross revenue will close this loophole to businesses, and it will generate more revenue than government has ever seen in this country. Just to be absolutely clear, though, the 10% flat tax will not apply to offshore businesses in Barbados. They will continue to operate under the same terms that they do now. In fact, as an incentive for local businesses to bring home foreign currency they earn, local businesses will only be taxed at 5% on their foreign exchange earnings instead of 10%. So if you own a hotel and some of your gross income comes from foreign currency, we will only tax that portion of your income that was earned in Barbados at 10% and the rest earned in foreign currency at 5%. Not only are we going to introduce a 10% flat tax to replace all of the ridiculous taxes we currently pay, but we will start by forgiving all government debts in this country on the first day we are elected to office in Barbados. We will forgive all government debt. So if you owe the government of Barbados money in land tax, solid waste tax, road tax, VAT, corporation tax, personal income tax, or any money whatsoever as at the moment that we're elected, you are no longer indebted to the government of Barbados. You won't owe them a red cent. That is a guarantee. So everybody gets a clean slate with this new 10% tax system. But I'll tell you, we will expect everybody to be tax compliant from then on. Do you know that the government of Barbados is owed over $1 billion right now? Do you know what will happen when we release all that money into the economy of Barbados? When people no longer have to pay the government what they've been paying them monthly in arrears to NIS and land tax and so forth, they can finally spend that money. And when they spend it, that's economic activity. And that is what we need in this country. Not only is the debt forgiveness an economic measure, but it is biblical as well. This year is our Jubilee year. And the Bible says that in your Jubilee year, you should forgive all debts. But our Jubilee year has come and gone. And this government has not sought to do so. So Solutions Barbados will do it on the day that we are elected in this country. These are not cheap political ploys to get votes. These are carefully crafted economic measures that will boost the foreign reserve and stabilize and grow the economy of this country. I want to speak to the retirees in Barbados. I want to let you know that a Solutions Barbados government will no longer tax your retirement benefits. Taxing retirement benefits is unconscionable. Any government, I can't understand how anybody could tax a man on his unemployment benefits. The man worked for 30 or 40 years. That money was taxed already when it went into the unemployment benefit. And now when he's getting it back, you want to tax it again? That is not right. And we will cease that as soon as we're elected. Solutions Barbados will also establish a new national development bank in this country. And we will float it on the stock exchange. So that all Barbadians can have an opportunity to invest in it. This new National Development Bank of Barbados will be established specifically to assist small businesses in this country. Transactions will be able to be performed at all the post offices across Barbados and at the internet. Tell me something, have you ever gone to a bank in Barbados to get a loan for a small business? Well, I have, and I can tell you about it. These days, I want an arm and a leg and a vial of blood before they give any small business person in this country a loan. And they want your house and land and your grandmother's will too as security. Even some of the credit unions behaving that way these days. That's why few people in this country, small business people, can get a small business loan. But we're going to make financing for small business very easy in Barbados, because we will establish a bank specifically for them. And finally, Solutions Barbados will ensure that all state-owned enterprises are accountable to the Auditor General, and by extension to you, the public of Barbados, for their performance. We will ensure that all of them file their financial statements on time every year, and we will empower the Auditor General to take action against those state-owned enterprises who are not filing their financial statements on time. And if the politically appointed boards can't do the job of running these state enterprises effectively, as Grenville Phillips said, we're putting you on notice. We will get rid of them because it just costs him money and wasting our time. So in wrapping up, I would like you guys to go on our website at solutionsbarbados.com and our Facebook page and read about all of our economic policies. They are designed to work cohesively as a complete system, not separately. But tonight, the rest of these speakers are going to tell you about the rest of those. And I thank you. May God bless you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Scott Weatherhead.